What's up, everybody? Welcome to BioS3 Raw TV. So we're going to talk about form tonight. Now, some people are going to make fun of me right off the bat because there are people in the comment section, trolls, that tear me. I shouldn't say trolls, but armchair quarterbacks, couch quarterbacks, whatever you want to call them, keyboard warriors, whatever, who like to point out stuff about form. And there's even like a term for people that critique people's form on the internet called the fucking form Nazis, right? Now, you'll never hear me critiquing anyone's form. And it might be like, well, maybe you don't know about form, Jerry. And people get cocky, and I think most people out there like to present themselves as they know things that other people don't. That makes them seem like they know more than they do, and they're just to make them feel better about themselves. So people go, well, they're like an expert. Well, here's the thing. There is no such thing as one type of proper form. There isn't. And I learned this through trial and error, and actually what I'm going to do is not just give you guys this info now, because many of you may be struggling with this right now, but there's actually scientific data that I'm going to give you to back this up, that each person to person, their form will and should vary based on their structure. Now, some of it is actually very genetic based on where your ethnic backgrounds are, which is very surprising. But again, this is something that I learned long ago. Now, for me, I learned long ago that, and I had been taught, your bench press, your grip should be over here, which is kind of, I wouldn't say wide grip, but it's like a normal grip is about here. My grip was always here, which would be considered now a narrow grip by bench press standards, right? For me to do close grip bench presses or narrow grips, I would actually put my thumbs together, and this is where I would do close grips from here. This was my normal bench, right? And people would say stuff like, well, Jerry, like, you're benching too close. And I'm like, right, but I'm benching 405 for reps there. And people would be like, what the fuck? It's like a weird grip. Now, my other buddy would actually hold it like on the collars. He'd hold it like fucking way out like on the collars, and he would bench out there. He had a very wide shoulder structure, but he had power there. And when you brought his hands in any closer, he had less power. My power was right inside this weird kind of area due to my clavicle structure and how my body was set up. Now, when I first started benching, I had a hard time benching because I was following the form that everybody else was telling me to follow. This is proper form. Squat was the same thing. My squat was horrible for the longest period of time. And although I don't squat heavy now, like I still use the same squat form that I do now that I used to back then. And for me to get the stance to actually go up and down in an Olympic squat, which my friend Manuel Buitrago had showed me how to do, that Dr. Manuel Buitrago, I should say that, PhD, that was an eye-opening experience because I was being taught to do this very close, narrow squat by bodybuilding standards, and it wasn't, with your toes pointed out, it wasn't, a wide stance, a sumo stance. It was basically, this is the way bodybuilders squat for leg size, right? And I just followed it because that's what I was told. Now, there was really no scientific data, and the form Nazis pointing at people about form, there's actually no scientific data pointing that you're saying the truth, that my form should be a certain way or anyone else's form should be a certain way. It's actually just your opinion based on what you've been told by people that actually don't have anything to back it up other than what they were told or what they deem proper form. Now, taller guys and taller girls, I've found. Actually, my friend Jenny O, Jenny O'Laughlin is a perfect example of this. She's probably 5'11", flat-footed, right? And when she does her squats and her deadlifts, she's very strong at them. She's built herself up over years of training heavy, and her squat form is much wider stance, toes pointed out slightly. Other, women that are shorter, narrow stance, right? It's a different stance based on not just height, but now I'm going to put up a graph, or a picture rather, here of the difference between like a European and a non-European actual hip structure. And if you look, the European hip structure, the sockets for your hips are actually on the sides. The non-European, which would be more of like the American, but don't get me wrong, all of our genetics are kind of mixed now. So now it's like, archaeologists actually had dug these bones up long ago and started basically cataloging how things were. They started comparing the different bones to other ethnicities of the world all over the place, and they noticed the bone structure was actually different. So the way the hip actually, the leg, the ball and socket joint actually sit inside that socket of the hip is on the side of the Europeans, and of the Americans or the non-Europeans, it's moved to the front a little bit, which means that you could actually squat with your feet to a narrow, not a narrow, but a shoulder's width apart with that hip socket that's more in the front, and you'll be able to move up and down. Those levers will work properly, and your strength will be there. As the European model that we see of the hip bones, their hip sockets are on the sides, which means that sumo stance opened up, or frog leg. It's been called multiple things throughout it's been called frog squats, sumo squats, you name it. that opening up of the legs and pointing out of the toes actually gives them the power and strength there. That's why it varies so much from person to person. Now, if you're the type of person like those form Nazis, which what I find interesting about the form Nazis is you never see a picture of them, you never see their numbers, they don't even have a picture of their avatar. It's like the little blue head, it's a random name, it's not even their name, it's like Killer 1942 Heavyweight or some shit. It's always the dumbest shit. It's like an 18-year-old kid somewhere who thinks that they know what the fuck they're talking about. They point at everybody else, but I'm like, here's the thing. Kinesiology dictates the movement of the body, the different weight levers, and the angles that they work. Now, the problem is everybody's kinesiology can be different based on their bone structure, meaning those levers from your shoulder to your elbow, just that from me and my bone structure where my clavicles are is going to put me in a different mechanical advantage than somebody who has a wider shoulder girdle like Jay Cutler. Very wide shoulders naturally, which he'd have a little bit of a wider grip, which is more natural for him. But the problem was when you're being told that this is the proper form and you force yourself into that proper form, which is not really proper form for you, now what happens is you're forcing the body to do something in a very unnatural state, that those levers and those stabilizing muscles do not work properly the way that your body mechanics work. So now what you're doing is you're forcing it in there, and the body will adapt to it. It will definitely adapt to it, but you're not going to see the jumps in strength, the jumps in muscle mass. You're not going to see the products of your training coming to fruition as fast or as good as you would if you actually figured out that that is not the right form for you. You'll actually be able to handle heavier weight. You'll be able to do more reps. Your body will work more efficiently if you find your own form rather than going by what someone else tells you is proper form. Now, we do know that certain leverages, like when you squat, the knee should not track over the foot. It should stay behind that toe. When you squat down, if that knee, so if this is your foot, and you squat down and your knee goes over your foot, as you squat down, you're going to feel that pressure in your knee and it hurts. If you squat down and it doesn't go forward, it comes down and stays in line over here, doesn't track over the toe, you don't feel the pain. Now, whatever it takes to get you in that type of, because there is a proper form as far as the mechanics of where the force is put on like your joints per se. So finding where that is, like that squat position, right? You know, I have a client actually, I'm lucky enough to actually have, you know, this individual trains near me, but we work online and we actually go to the same gym, but I can't actually train him at that gym because the gym is Export Fitness and you have to work for the gym to train somebody there, which doesn't make any sense for me to do that. But, you know, he had a problem with something as little as, I shouldn't say as little, but going to the pit squat, the pit shark squat, shark pit squat, pit shark. Anyways, that basically the belt squat, right? When he was going on, he was telling me, like, dude, I'm having these pains in my knees. I said, do you have them when you squat? And he said, no. I said, all right, well, we'll check your form. Next time in the gym, let me check your form and see what's going on, right? So basically, when you get to the pit shark, you're going to have to get in a different position than you would when you're doing regular squats, right? When you go to sit back, if you're sitting back on the, if your legs are too far back, your feet are too far back on the pit squat, and you're leaning forward holding those railings, when you lean down, the knees track over the feet. Now, if you're doing that with a regular bar, you would just fall forward and fall over and drop the weight. So it allows your body to get in these positions which wouldn't normally be able to get in a free weight. So when I got on there, he's standing there watching. When I got on there, I showed him where I put my feet because my heels, when I sit down, I have to sit back like I'm sitting in a chair in order to use a heavier weight. And again, you got to have the handles in front of you to keep your balance. But that allows you to sit back and push through your heels, where yes, you're pushing through your heels on a regular squat, but you're also balancing at the same time. So you can use different foot positions. You can use where your feet in, out. I mean, there's different things you can do on the pit shark that you can't do in a regular squat, which, I mean, will it develop your legs any differently? Maybe, maybe not. I mean, we've seen Muscle Meets Magnet, which is a book that shows MRI of all the different muscles. And by turning wrists, turning your arms, turning your feet, moving your knees in and out, it shows how it stimulates muscles differently based on how they're stabilized, where you'll put more stress on one muscle, let's say your vastus lateralis as opposed to your vastus medialis. When you keep your foot kind of turned in a little bit and it's kind of straight, you move that foot out a little bit, it hits the vastus medialis rather than the vastus lateralis on the quad. And you can see it. It's scientific data. Anybody can see it. It's called Muscle Meets Magnet. You can go see it right now. But the point I'm trying to get at is what's right form for one person may not be for another one. I've seen like Marcus Rule, for instance. I remember watching him, and Marcus, when I was bodybuilding and I wanted to be huge, was a monster, right? I don't know how he is anymore, but he was a freak. So I'm watching his back then it was cassette tape. It wasn't DVD, and it was him benching, and he was benching on the collars. He had his arms way the fuck out here, and he's benching like this, and I was like, that must be what it takes to get fucking huge. So the next day I go in the gym, and I take just the bar and I hold it up, and I put my hands on the collars, and I'm like, this is fucking weird. I put 135 on. I'm struggling with 135. I'm like, what the fuck? I'm like, this is what it takes to get big? I felt like it was going to tear that shoulder right out of the joint fucking on both sides. Why? Because my clavicles are not this fucking wide. They're this wide. It's completely different. So be aware, guys, when you see somebody doing something, that may not necessarily be the wrong form for them. It may be the wrong form based on what these yahoos are saying on fucking social media. Like, that's why they have a sumo squat and a regular squat and a sumo pull and a regular pull, because people's bodies are different. That's why they actually allow it in competition. So like they say, you have to sit here with your feet, shoulders width apart. I mean, there's absolutes in powerlifting where the bar has to, when you're, doing a squat or a deadlift, once you go down, the bar has to come up and not stop, right? You have to lock out. You have to go down to a certain depth. But they don't care whether your feet are turned out, straight, wide stance. They don't give a shit. Why? Because they know, they understand that those hips may be completely different from person to person. And it's the same thing with a bench. If you wanted to go bench press in a powerlifting meet with your hands fucking together like this, and you bench press 600 pounds like that, they don't give a fuck. Why? You can narrow clavicles. Who gives a fuck? I mean, guys with shorter arms, we know the mechanical advantage helps with the shorter arms. You have less range of motion to push. So if you take the thing off the rack, you got short arms, you pull it down, boom, there's your range of motion. That's why people arch their back and shit like that. But that doesn't mean that you should literally take the bar off and your arms have to be a certain way like everybody else's, and you have to fucking, there are people that bench to the neck. I've seen people bench to the neck, 400, 500 pounds, boom, right up, no problem. That's called the guillotine press back in the day when I first started training. I mean, some people would say, that's wrong, you shouldn't bench like that, you're going to get hurt. Motherfucker's almost 270 pounds, bench pressing 500 pounds, has never been injured in his life. Why the fuck would you say that? Right? And then he goes to try to bench press like everybody else tells him. He can't bench press shit, and he gets an injury doing that. I was like, why the fuck did you change it? It's like, well, I was in proper form. It says who? The guys that told you that you had poor form, they're not even at your fucking level. They haven't been training as long as you do. They have no instinctual training behind them whatsoever. They can't move the numbers you do. They don't have the fucking muscle mass you do. You're so much more advanced than them, and you're listening to them? Why the fuck would you do that? Well, the book. What fucking book? You try to tell me you think a fucking scientist and wrote a fucking book that one fucking scientist says this is proper form for the entire fucking world? Like fucking Wilt Chamberlain could do fucking the same exact form as Hornswoggle from the WWE? Fucking Hornswoggle is a fucking little person, a dwarf, whatever you want to call him. He's like less than 3 feet tall. Fucking Wilt Chamberlain is like fucking 6'10". You trying to tell me they're supposed to have the same form based on this fucking scientist's fucking dilemma that he had, trying to figure out what proper form is. And I'll tell you right now, most scientists, they just kind of look at it like, well, and this is going to be a kicker. The way that we came up with those height and weight charts, right? Those babies, a baby's born should be this weight. Next one, it should this weight, height to weight charts, right? Well, the things that we follow, my height, I should be 168 pounds roughly, right? I feel like that's way too thin, way too sickly. You're definitely not strong at that weight even for that size, right? So why the fuck would you go by this chart? Because that's a chart that says healthy, right? If you do your research and find out where they get those numbers from, those doctors that decided that's a good height and weight took them from cadavers, from fucking dead people. They literally laid them on the fucking slab, sized them up and said, that looks like a good weight. By eye, they fucking weighed them, they fucking measured their height. This dude's a fucking perfection. That's how those charts get made. My question is, how the fuck healthy is a cadaver? It's not healthy, it's fucking dead, period. Where's the fucking logic in that? Some fucking random ass doctor with his opinion of what was fucking the right thing to be became fact for us. Many fucking people out there, that doctors, scientists, whatever, what their opinions were, have become fact. The doctor's opinion was, well, these people that were squatting, this was proper form. Dude, those motherfuckers that you're talking about doing that proper form with that squat never squatted 3, 4, 5, 600 pounds. What we do in the gym, bodybuilders and powerlifters, was never studied when they came out with proper form back in the day. Those weights didn't exist. So I'm kind of wrapping my head around the fact that, like, the proper form is so outdated because of the beginning of bodybuilding. This is proper form. Okay, maybe you should try your first set ever when you walk in the gym like those people say. And if that shit feels fucking off, adjust it. That's how I did it. That's how most people do it. The proper form gives you a starting point. And what you do is, if you're not progressing with that, many times people go, I'm not progressing in the gym, I'm trying so hard. The form is off. Your mechanical advantage is fucked. The body's not getting stimulated the way you think it is. You're in the gym wasting your fucking time with poor form, which is not poor form, which people call it sloppy form or whatever. No, the form that you're doing, which is proper form or textbook form, now is not the right form for you. So your whole goal now, before you can even progress or become a bodybuilder or a powerlifter, is to find the fucking form that's for you. Now, some people may fit that mold of that textbook form perfectly. Some people may not. It took me fucking years to figure out how to bench press properly. And now people are going, Joe, you fucking tore your pec. You goddamn right I tore my pec. Why? Because I fucking decided to go after a fucking weight that I hadn't touched in fucking over a decade. Of course I'm going to fucking hurt myself. But the bottom line was, even after not going near that weight in 12 years, I still bench pressed 225 for 15 reps like that with no problem with that form. Think about it. Improper form, right? How the fuck would somebody go near a fucking weight that they haven't touched in 12 years, pick up that fucking weight, and move that fucking weight with the most improper form and no mechanical advantage? Like the improper mechanical advantage due to the fact that it was improper form. It's not. It was pushing my body too fast to get back to where I was, which that's anything. That's not just bench presses. If you're a fucking sprinter and you push yourself too fast to get back to where you originally were after fucking not doing it, you're going to get injured. If you're on fucking drugs and you fucking stop taking drugs for 12 years and you go back to fucking doing what you were doing, you overdose and die. That's just a fact of life, that if you push yourself too fast, too hard, you're probably not going to make it because you're going to get injured. That's all there is to it. So looking at it as proper form, what is proper form? Mine is different than yours, different than hers, different than everybody's. And the fact that we have these bones that have been studied by anthropology and archaeologists that have dug shit up to see how people's bones have changed throughout the fucking eons, things have changed based on where you lived in the world. So now what happens is we have these ethnicities from these different countries blending together. Like I don't know, 5, 6, 7 different ethnicities. There are characteristics from all these different things that my hips, when I squat with my feet closer forward, it doesn't feel right. You can feel it fucked up. When I tried to do a deadlift, which I didn't do any longer because of the compressed disc in my spine, those narrow deadlifts didn't do it for me. But I could get over there and do a sumo, not so much a sumo, maybe a little slighter than sumo, because some guys go really wide. I'm kind of in between sumo and standard practical squats. But I figured that out by going, well, this doesn't feel right, that doesn't feel right, let me try this. But the thing was, I didn't have anybody coming up to me going, you're doing it wrong, because the guys in the gym that I was training around back in the day were instinctual. Nobody was running around trying to point fingers at people, trying to tell them they're wrong because some shit they read on the internet, some fucking paper that was written by some fucking nerdy goddamn fucking scientist who's never even been in the gym, that fucking goes, this is what I think, and puts out the fucking paper, and you're like, does a bunch of math and a bunch of numbers, say, well, the force times distance times that, this is proper form. It's like, but that motherfucker just almost broke his leg doing that. When he adjusted his form, his fucking weights went up by 50% in a fucking month. How do you explain that? And then you go back to the drawing board. Let me figure it out. Well, that new drawing board, all right, when they go back right now, and we're going to be 2020, you go back to learning proper form now, these scientists would actually say now, in 2020, everybody's body is structurally different. Therefore, form is going to vary from person to person. Don't let the form Nazis get to you. Fuck those form Nazis. Fuck those motherfuckers out talking about proper form, proper form, proper form. They don't know any fucking different. They haven't been in the gym fucking long enough. They have no results to show for it. They have nothing other than pointing fingers on the internet because they have nothing else better to do. So don't listen to that. If your form is working for you, fuck those form Nazis. Bottom line is, do what's right for you. Do not listen to these assholes. And you're going to be so far ahead of these motherfuckers. Half these guys won't be around in fucking 2 years, but you'll be so far ahead of all these motherfuckers that are trying to pay attention to this scientific data from 50 years ago that's fucking outdated, and doing your fucking thing now and paying attention, listening, and doing what it takes to make your body do what it needs to do for you, your bone structure, your genetics, your ethnic background, your fucking everything, right? Doing that is going to get you so much further than listening to these fucking form Nazis. But you have to have a starting place. You start where the form Nazis want you to start, because they're beginners too. They have no fucking clue. You try it and you see how you feel. If you feel off, you can hire a trainer. Now the problem is some of these trainers don't understand what the fuck I'm saying. Some of these newer trainers go take a fucking certification. The form Nazis fucking information isn't that, and they fucking try to do that. Next thing you know, people get hurt. It's a giant mess. But here's the thing. Find a starting point based on what proper form or proper technique is now. If that doesn't feel right to you and you're not progressing, before you start looking at steroids and supplements and all that other shit, look at your form first. 99% of the time when somebody's not progressing the way they want to, it's not because they're not taking creatine. It's not because they're not on testosterone. It's because their form is fucked up because they've been listening to the fucking form Nazis. BioStrengthTraining@gmail.com. Leave comments down below, but don't fight. BioStrength.com is a blog. It's the No More Form Nazis. Boop, bicep, and we are